Chris Lovett is a self-proclaimed, self-labeled minimalist. He's a minimalist, and he wrote this book, Discovery of Less: How I Found Everything I Wanted Underneath Everything I Owned. The link for that book is also going to be in the description if you guys want to grab it. Remember that when we do put Amazon links in the description, Amazon give us a little kickback to Freshly Grounded at no extra cost to you. So do use our link and we'll make maybe a couple pennies. So that'd be nice. Chris, he's a minimalist, and he kind of got in touch with us, told us about his book. And you guys might remember an episode of the podcast that we did in the past with Jamil Qureshi. And Jamil is a leadership coach and thinker, and he wrote a few words for Chris. And so I saw the link and I was like, well, this would be lovely to speak in depth about minimalism. I know that minimalism is something that over the last few years has gained popularity. I wanted to understand it a bit further, and I think we did. It was lovely chatting to him, and I hope you guys, A, get some benefit from this episode, but B, are inspired to start removing some things from your life that you might not need anymore. And Chris gave some practical tips on how you can go ahead and do that. So this is episode 254 of Freshly Grounded with Chris Lovett. Enjoy. And welcome to Freshly Grounded, the brand new podcast.
Well, it's not exactly brand new anymore, is it?
Welcome to Freshly Grounded, the podcast.
That's better.
Created by best friends Faisal and Sam.
Huh?
I said welcome to Freshly Grounded.
After that bit.
Created by
After that bit.
best friends Faisal and Sam.
Really?
And we are live. Chris, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me on.
And it's absolute. The pleasure is all mine. I've been reading the book, and I have so many questions now. Yeah. I have been reading it. Yeah, I've been reading the book, and I've got a lot of questions to ask you. I should actually preface this by saying that I've seen that your story exists online, and that you've done kind of podcast speaking about your story, and also your stories in the book. So I don't want this conversation to be necessarily about your story as much as kind of the lessons for it, but also really practical advice for our listeners and myself, really, about many things, because I've realized that it's not just simply about decluttering the like physical side of things. But I suppose I want to start by saying that one thing I noticed very quickly by reading your book is that you genuinely are a person who went from, correct me if I'm wrong, like most of us, having lots of stuff and keeping things like you mentioned, the golf equipment and the football stuff that you hadn't really used, and then so you went from like one not extreme, but like one level to another. Whereas often you find that somebody has kind of been living to some extent like a lifestyle throughout their life, and they've just like turned it up. You seem to have gone one place to another and gone through an awakening within that. Would that be fair to say?
It was by complete fluke that this awakening kind of happened, really, because I needed the money. I wanted to go travelling, but I needed the money, because you can't go travelling without any money. So how did I get the money? I tried to sell stuff, and I realised how much attachment I had to my things, my DVD collection, my clothes, all these other bits and pieces that actually didn't really mean that much in the first place. So once I started getting rid of them, then I realised how much stuff that I really needed to enjoy the best bits of life. So going travelling, changing careers, doing things that I really wanted to do and spend time with the people I wanted to spend time with didn't really need me to go and buy 5 T-shirts or have the Sopranos box set anymore, even though the Sopranos is great, right? So yeah, it was almost like selling my stuff helped me to figure out that I didn't need a lot of stuff to enjoy the best bits of life.
Was it the first time you started getting rid of things? Was it an addictive thing? Because the reason I ask is I think it's the norm to like have this feeling of wanting more things.
Yeah.
It's the default.
Yeah.
You do always. It's what you desire. So essentially, what you're doing is you're fighting your desires, which never sounds fun because you want to do what you desire.
Yeah.
So what made you carry on? Was it that it was addictive?
It was a little bit addictive, yeah, because you're right, Faisal. Like, we are probably conditioned to think that more means better. Well, in society, we have adverts, we have maybe the culture we've been brought up in is that more means that you're more successful. We aim for the better car, we aim for the better job, the higher salary, But once we get to those things, we then push those off that actually they weren't really enough anyway. I want to go and get more things. And so it was really quite a disruptive way of living and being, because you're not supposed to get rid of everything you've bought. Like, who does that, really?
Yeah.
And so to start doing that, it was really strange. But once I saw the immediate rewards of, oh, my stuff can pay me back, which means I can reinvest that into a flight to Copenhagen, for example. So it almost rewarded me immediately with financial rewards. And then after that, it rewarded me through a bit more better mental health, because my home was calm. So I would come home from work, and that would be my place of rest and calm. And I could think more clearly, and I could do other things and things like that. So it gave me that space, physically and metaphorically. And then all of a sudden, I had new ideas, and I had a bit more creativity. And so the more stuff I got rid of, the more kind of ideas I had, the more creativity I had, the more time I had, because we all want more time, right, to do the things that we want to do. And yeah, it was just strange and really addictive, and especially when you get on Music Mappi and start scanning your barcodes and things like that. That can be the
numbers.
Yeah, and you gamify it. You can gamify it as well, right? So
it makes sense, yeah. So many elements of that I want to pick apart. I'm losing them all in how much there is, but one of them, I suppose, is that thing about creating that environment of calm is very interesting, because I was speaking to you off air and saying that I wanted to create, even in the studio, a feeling of conversation, a feeling that's very cozy, where you feel like you could chat for hours.
Yeah.
And hopefully, to some extent, with all these purple
I
lights.
love it. I love in the light. I love in all the setup. It's great.
But in saying that, when I'm at home and I want to, every now and again, so my work consists of, similarly to you, tasks that have to be completed, which can kind of be done anywhere. And then there's a whole nother element of work, which is creativity, thinking of new ideas, implementing new ideas. And often when I'm in that phase, I have to leave the house. And I want to go to a coffee shop, or I want to go to somewhere where I feel the environment encourages that.
Yeah.
And I do sometimes think to myself, why can't I create that environment at home? And perhaps it is because of the stuff in the house.
Maybe. I mean, there's lots of... I love looking at how we live as a society, and especially as a British culture as well. We're the worst at it. We've got, so England can't win the Euros, right? We lost on penalties to Italy. At Eurovision, we can't even score any points, right? Yeah. But England is the right. So this is a true fact, right? So the UK hoards more stuff than the rest of Europe combined.
Really?
So what industry is, at the moment, one of the biggest industries on the uprise is storage.
Okay.
So you've got more storage facilities in the UK than the rest of Europe combined. So that equates to the demand in the UK to store our old stuff is higher than the rest of Europe combined, which is really, really worrying. And also it's really interesting, because when we look to buy a house, because we are a culture of owners, we love to own stuff, and we continue to put a load of money, time, stress. So buying a house is the most stressful thing you're ever going to do. It's probably the most expensive thing you're going to purchase. And then what we do is we fill it full of junk.
Yeah.
And so it's no surprise that all the rooms, the spare room, because we need a spare.
It's true, yeah.
All of the spaces inside our home are actually filled with the decisions of the past, like our old habits and our old collections of stuff that maybe used to add value back in the day, but maybe it don't add so much value now. So, but it's really difficult to let go of that stuff because they're ours and we own it.
Could there be an element of perception and social pressure? Because when somebody comes to my house to visit my house, want them to see my golf clubs and be like, oh, you play golf, is there an element of perhaps social pressure or keeping up with appearances, do you think?
I think so, yeah. I think there definitely is. People look at bookcases, for example.
My wife all the time says to me, I haven't seen you read that book, or you've read that book, why do you have to have your books here? And I'm like, no, I need to keep my books, but I don't know why I say I need to keep them, but I just there's a name for that. It's a Japanese proverb. I think it's called sunduku, and it basically means to collect books without the intention of reading them. Okay.
And that again, it almost comes back to why do we have a collection of books? Is it for our own continual learning, or is it one day, if I have time, I might get round to it. Or when people come round, they can have a look at all my book collection and go, wow, he must be so well read. So whether it's a perception thing or the impression that we're trying to give off to friends, family, people that come round, our stuff can build a bit of an identity. Because if you were to go round to someone's house and it was completely blank, nothing on the walls, you would have a perception of how that person lived. You'd have probably no idea about what their identity really was. But if I went round to your house and I saw your book collection or some really nice suits or whatever, I'd be like, he dresses well, he's well read. So I'm starting to create an idea of you. And then the stuff you bring in for yourself, you also create that identity too. So like even before I had loads and loads of football kits. So I had this identity of going to football matches, and that was part of who I was. So if I was to get rid of my football kits, does that then mean I don't enjoy football anymore? Obviously it doesn't, because you can still enjoy the thing without the stuff and without the physical item. But yeah, there's a lot of kind of connotations around how our stuff and our relationship with stuff is really interesting.
It is interesting, and it's made me think of...
Because you leant forward.
Yeah. That's how you know it's interesting. It's like playing FIFA.
Yeah.
There's a thing that we do in my house, which is we have... we don't really eat snacks, right? But we have some snacks ready for like if someone was to come over. If someone comes over, we got like cake or biscuits and stuff like that. And
where's my invite?
Yeah, soon. So what happened is, I'm just thinking now, right? Like doing the math, I've opened the calculator up. I think like even if, because you do often have things for guests.
Well, you really are opening
right?
the calculator.
I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've also got 2 physical calculators. If you want to test me, I've got.
Don't give me one because I'll
I've got the
write.
regular.
Yeah.
And then I've got this one that was gifted to me. This is just stuff.
Let's have a look.
At this point, it's like mechanical. Press some buttons. It feels really satisfying.
It actually does feel quite satisfying. But
Yeah.
you know what? The first thing I want to do is just turn it upside down and write rude words.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm going to give it back to you
Fine.
now.
Yeah, do that. That's fine. So let's say you were to have guests in your house even 4 times a week, which is quite a lot, and they would stay an average of 2 hours. Then how many hours are in a week? You're talking 7 days times 24 hours, 168 hours in a week minus 8. That's well, I don't know why do I have to minus 8 on a calculator for 168. Anyway, but that means that even if you have people coming to your house often, it's like 99% of the time it's just you. And the point I'm saying in all this is, I think I remember having a conversation with my wife and saying, you know what, if people come around, I can just pop to the shop and buy biscuits. I don't have to have them ready and just taking up space for absolutely no reason.
Yeah.
And because no one really just turns up out of the blue, and even if they were to, I could still pop to the shops when they're there and just grab some biscuits because there's shops everywhere. Do you know what I mean? So it makes sense not having things, but also very hard to put into practice.
Yeah. Do you remember when people used to come around with uninvited?
Yeah,
that doesn't really happen anymore, does it?
Yeah, you know, got phones and everything.
Yeah. That was it kind of fun? I don't know.
For me, it was fun because for me, I was those times a kid, and so it'd be like your friend comes and knocks for you.
Yeah.
Is anyway, is Faisal in?
Yeah.
I do want to at some point go into practical steps we could take. Although I don't think we've finished this conversation of like giving like guidance to the life of minimalism. But there's I want you to hold me to this. There's a practical tip that I have that has really helped me a lot about minimalism, and it's my only tip.
Share it.
Yeah,
come on, man.
But I'm gonna hold it for us. So just remind me, because then all the tips are gonna come from you. So I've got only one. Before I say that, I want to say that there's a quote that we have in Arabic that translates to, if a person were to have a value of gold, as soon as they have 1 value of gold, they would want 2. If they had 2, they would want 3. And it's similar to what you were saying earlier, which is that, do you ever feel satisfied? Do you ever have enough stuff, right?
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. I used to kind of say when I go out and do talks in businesses and festivals and things like that, I always talk about the goalposts. So we always talk about moving the goalposts. We've heard that analogy before. And what I tend to tell people is like on the crossbar of these goalposts, it says the word enough. And when we get to the goalpost that says enough on it, we then move it away. And actually, no, that wasn't really enough. Over there might be enough. And then we move the goalpost and then we get over there. But actually, that wasn't really enough either. It's just around the corner now. And so trying to find that that kind of area in your life where you are content. The volume of amount of things that you've got, I'm happy with, is really, really difficult sometimes because we're constantly chasing happiness and we're always on the go. And especially like you mentioned about the podcast that you listened to before, and even me. And I was always brought up on a hustle culture, right? Work really hard, because working really hard, it rewards you. But to some extent, if you continue to walk or run at 100 miles an hour, you will fall off a cliff.
Sure.
So there has to be a point in time where you stop. And whether that is, you stop buying stuff, or you have enough in your home, or you do a certain amount of hours before, your decision fatigue kicks in, or, analysis paralysis kicks in, and the quality of the decisions gets lower.
What's analysis paralysis?
It's when you have so much going on in your head that you can't make a decision.
Fine.
It's a bit like procrastination, but it's so much going on that you can't move forward, basically. But yeah, so yeah, I love that, and I think that there's a point where we get to where we try and find where enough is, and once we find that enough, it's just being content there and knowing that we are enough. What I've got is enough. What I'm doing is enough. And once we kind of stop that race for more, we kind of get a sense of, I'm quite content here.
So what does minimalism look like for you, Chris Lovett? Because when you think about minimalism, often you imagine a man in his house, empty house, sofa, maybe a lamp, and that's it.
And that's it.
Especially when you see the documentary, obviously on Netflix, that was huge and really done amazing things for minimalism. But you did see a lot of that, like man in the frame.
Everything is white, or you wear stuff without any labels on.
That's the perception. In fact, do you know what, Chris? Before you answer the question, for us, this is a perfect experiment for you. Just like research, right? Because for us, and I was speaking about minimalism before you came, and he was saying, I think some of the stuff he was saying, I was saying, for us, but that's not minimalism. Like, just because you're minimalist doesn't mean you, I suppose, like your whole life is like, I have nothing or something like that. So I think what would be great for us, you give us your idea of what minimalism is. I'm uneducated in minimalism as well, and then we'll speak to the expert and we'll understand what your life is like now in this day and age, and how similar it is to what for us. And I think
I was saying minimalism is all of a mindset. So you try to, there's a concept of having tabs open in your mind,
nice.
And the concept of having the least amount of tabs open, I thought, was minimalism. And then your surrounding reflects that. So if you look around, like for example, we have a lot of boxes here in the studio. If there's boxes weren't here, you might feel a different way, and you won't feel as congested or as in this room. So I thought it was a mindset that is reflected by your outer surroundings, where Faisal thought it was something else.
That was a really good answer for us, but you did not say that.
Yeah, but that's what I was trying to say.
that was amazing. You embarrassed me. I'm like, hey, listen to Fawaz. Off the podcast,
I said, if you're a minimalist, maybe you wouldn't want to be in full-time work.
Yeah, that's
what I said.
An example.
That's what I said.
He was like, can you be a he was like, if you're a minimalist, you would leave your job because that's a minimalism thing to do.
Yeah.
But I think that
okay,
because it's an easier way to live.
And I know you did leave your job.
I did, yeah.
But
I have got another one now, though.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. I was under the impression you didn't work.
Well,
and
I was just like,
your lifestyle was, and I was like, how does he afford to live if he hasn't got a job? That was my biggest question. And Faisal said to me, no, Fawaz, that's not how it is. It's more about your outer surroundings. But what I was trying to say is what I just said.
But then again, I guess I don't know the answer, because I wouldn't label myself as a minimalist, and my wife wouldn't label me as a minimalist. And that's really like the true litmus test. So that's, I suppose, where we hand it over to you and say, what does Chris Lovett's life look like now as a minimalist?
It looks pretty normal. Everything you guys have come up with is correct. It's just your version. And so what you are presented, whether it is, we've heard of Marie Kondo, right? And folding up and cleaning and tidying up, right? So she'll have a way of living and a kind of a minimalist mindset, I like to call it. The guys from America, the minimalists, they have an aesthetic where they won't wear anything other than black. And they will have a minimum amount of physical items. That's their way of interpreting what this lifestyle is like. My way is very British, and it's very much like less doesn't necessarily mean loss, even though there's only one letter difference. We sometimes accumulate less to mean you're losing, and so I just have enough. So I can't tell you how many t-shirts I've got. I can't tell you how many pairs of shoes I've got because I don't really know and I don't really care. So some people will go, I only want to have one t-shirt, one TV, one chest of drawers, one cabinet, etc. My version is physical stuff, I have enough. Digital stuff, I make sure that my relationship with technology and social media doesn't create a barrier for me to do other things. So I won't be on there incessantly scrolling through Instagram. My career doesn't block me from doing other things. It's fulfilling. So all of the things that I've got that surround my life, like other people have, like a job, clothes, money, lifestyle, digital, etc., they all add value. Anything that doesn't add value is gone.
Fine.
Basically. So they're the rules that I've set myself, but other people will have different set of rules. Like there's this guy called Colin Wright who he, similar to me to a certain extent, he didn't have a fixed abode. He just travelled around, but he did remote working and he had 50 things that he carried on in his bag everywhere he went. I can't live with 50 things. I need a bit more than that because I have a partner and I have a dog. My dog alone has 50 things. No, so but these are the things that I've chosen to bring into my life to make the best of it. So you're both right, basically.
Well, it seems like a very balanced perception of minimalism because I suppose some people could use the minimalist label as maybe an ego booster or like a perception thing where I'm a minimalist and like you said, like everything's white and I only have 2 t-shirts and that kind of way. Whereas you seem to have kind of got rid of the whole ego aspect of it and gone, well, this is just what works for me. Yeah,
well, exactly. And the things I still enjoy, like we were talking about, Friday night for me is takeaway night. Right? If you were to kind of put different aspects of minimalism, you would go, I'm only vegan, or I don't eat on a Monday, or whatever these rules
or
are.
takeaways.
Or no takeaways, exactly. Right. So. But I still know what bits are, of life that I enjoy. I like to travel. I like to eat good food. I like to hang out with my friends. I like to go out. That doesn't mean don't have that minimalist mindset of if I'm not enjoying the thing, if I don't want to bring the thing, and I won't. So bringing it back to work as well. So people are really, really busy at the moment. Everyone that I know within a work setting or business setting is some level of busy that we've never been to before. Is that a case of that we've got too much to do? Does all that stuff add value? If the stuff doesn't add value, why do we do it? And so I'm just here to kind of challenge some of that. And the way I live and work is almost like using the minimalist mindset and bringing it away from decluttering and bringing it into kind of that lifestyle and the way I live. So
Fine. I'm going to drag it back into decluttering for a second.
Yeah, go for it, man. Go for it.
Because I do think that's a very lovely kind of like overall kind of way of thinking about minimalism. Decluttering definitely is a huge element of it. And let's talk about those practical tips then. Because let's say there's people listening now, myself being one of them. What are some practical tips that allow you to like divorce those items? I'll begin because I only have one.
Go for it, man. This is going to be the best one.
And I've been chomping at the bit to say this one, right?
Go on, man.
But I heard this thing once when I was listening to like maybe Tim Ferriss was interviewing a minimalist or someone else, and the concept was I loved it. It was called the 20 by 20 rule. This guy lived by it. And what he said is, if you can get it, he goes, there's a whole bunch of things in your life that are like the miscellaneous things, wires, chargers, stuff like that. And he said, my rule for those things is, I don't implement it very well though. He said, my rule for these things is, if it's less than $20 and it takes less than 20 minutes to get it, then it goes in the bin. That's really cool. Because there is a list of things that I have in my house, definitely chargers, wires, leads, maybe some sporting equipment, stuff like that, that is definitely less than 20 quid. And definitely within 10 minutes I can get to like a sports shop or a tech store and stuff like that and grab it. And so I do remember always being impacted by that, although I'm not the best at living it. But what do you think about that
Faisal, that's it, man. We should end the podcast here because that tip is.
Why did you
great.
come on the podcast?
Yeah, exactly. Why am I even here? Why am I even here? I should be listening to you. No, that's great. One of the bits that I like to use is more of a challenge. So we will tend to find ourselves saying certain things when we touch or grab an object. And the two things we end up saying are just in case and one day. If you say yourself saying, I want to keep this thing just in case, alarm bells. Same thing as one day, right? So what we tend to do is we tend to create positive and negative scenarios in our head. So when we grab something like a t-shirt that doesn't really fit anymore, either because we've lost weight or it's out of fashion, we'll grab hold of it and we'll go, I'll keep that just in case. Or I'll keep hold of that because one day I'm going to go on a holiday and I will relaunch that t-shirt back into the world, or the pair of shorts, or whatever it is. The DVD collection for me was huge. I used to get tons and tons of films, and even people used to buy films for Christmas and birthdays because they knew that I enjoyed watching films. Some of them would stay in the cellophane wrapper for years. And during that first kind of weekend when I was decluttering, I would grab them off the shelf.
Did you have like a DVD rack?
Oh, yes. And I'd grab the film off the shelf and it would still be in the cellophane wrapping. I'd be like, but I can't get rid of it because one day I might want to watch X, whatever the film is, right? And as soon as I felt myself saying that, I was like, but I've had it for like 6 years.
Right.
When am I going to watch it, really? And I'm still paying for Netflix and Amazon and stuff like that. So if I really wanted to watch it again, so similar to 2020, where I could just rent it for like $3.79 or $5. So that's kind of the newer version of it. But yeah, just in case. So every time you hear yourself say just in case or one day, they're the alarm bells that you can go, oh, actually, let's see if we can do without it for a couple of days. Some people like to bag stuff up and put it in the boot of their car, or put it at someone else's house, although that's a little bit of a burden for someone else. Or if you've got space like a garage, and leave it there. And after a certain amount of time, you might forget. And if you forgot about the thing, it wasn't really that important in the first place.
That's a very good point.
Yeah. So
there's always that security of it is there, so you're not completely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I had loads of clothes that I wanted to donate. And this happened recently. So I still regularly declutter because life is such that you end up consuming. And so every kind of quarter, I will take stock and I'll go, right, what haven't I used? What can someone else get value from that I'm just hoarding and not using? And so I still had some jumpers and stuff, and I put them in a bag and I put them in the back of my car thinking, right, tomorrow I'm going to take them to a charity shop. They stayed there for like 6 weeks. But after 6, I had no idea what was in the bag. So it wasn't that important, and I still donated them. So yeah, there's a couple little bits. Whenever you're looking at looking around your house. So if you're listening to this now, and you're looking around your car, or looking around your front room or bedroom, and you're looking at going, when was the last time I used fill in the blank? That might be your trigger moment to go, I wonder what it would be like if I got rid of it.
Where's a good place to start?
Where would you start?
Leads and wires, probably.
That's great. I love leads and wires. I had so many HDMI cables.
I have HDMI cables, yeah.
But, you kept them just in case, right? Because if you lose the other 4, you've got 4 more. But yeah, leads and wires and clothes.
I think I might struggle with clothes.
Yeah, I did a bit because it was part of the identity thing that we mentioned earlier. Like when I go out and do these talks, I put up a picture of Burke from Trapdoor. So I had this thing about buying T-shirts that had really random cartoon references on.
Fine, okay.
So I had like Button Moon and Thundercats and things like that. And it was all the perception of like, oh, if people see me in that T-shirt, that means that I'm quirky, right. and people will talk to me and things like that. So it wasn't really about the clothes at all. It was about me and my perceptions of myself and things like that. So clothes was a difficult one for me, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd find that hard. And I'm, as we're speaking, envisioning my house, and I'm thinking, one of the big ones, it might be a cop-out, but one of the big ones is my son Zachariah, his toys. His toys taking over the whole house. But even that you can have a decluttering process with, because he does outgrow some toys, he doesn't use them, but you do think to yourself, oh, bless him, what if he wants that toy one day? And
one day, there you go.
He's a kid, he doesn't know. If it's gone, it's gone. He's not going to be like, oh, where's that? You can't even speak yet.
Yeah.
So it is true, like,
So you
it's
can
still my
steal.
fault.
You can steal toys from your child. Yes.
Yeah. No, just give permission.
Yeah,
Yeah, just checking. Yeah, fine. Yeah, it's interesting. It's always very intriguing, and I suppose like there's always more you can do with the decluttering process, and you kind of sometimes lie to yourself and say, well, no, I'm content with where I'm at. But when I think about it, I think you're right. Like, if you don't have one of those decluttering days at least once a quarter, you probably do have things that you could get rid of.
Yeah. I mean, there's loads of real good positive impacts around letting go of your stuff, not just for you as an individual. I mean, you as an individual get so much value out of having less stuff around your home. You'll feel a lot calmer. You'll be able to be more creative and stuff like that. So, but underneath all of that is your why, basically. It's your reason. Why do you want to live with a little bit less? And is it because you want to spend more time with your kids, right? Because spending time with kids and playing with the kids might be more important than going out to Toys R Us and buying the stuff for the kids that they're not going to play with. Right. So there's that, or whether it's spending time on your hobby or getting fit, or whatever the thing is underneath. Decluttering will help you do that, because it will help you remove attachment from identities and things like that. But also the impact to the community as well. So if you were to let go of, say, a batch of DVDs or clothes or whatever that you weren't using and you didn't love anymore, and you donated them, and someone in your community got real love and value from those clothes that you donated, you're adding value to society. So you're playing your part in this circular fashion economy that we really need to start doing, which I'll come on to in a minute, because fashion is like one of the worst polluters and things like that. So I got huge value out of, I sold a couple of suits on eBay, not for too much money, for like 30, 40 pounds, something like that. But they went to a 16-year-old as his first ever suit. I've added value to the community there, and it didn't cost me anything. Yeah. Actually, I made 20 to 30 quid off that. And so I knew that kind of thing would happen. A colleague of mine also did the very same thing. He met his partner, they moved in together, and they both had stuff. So being the gentleman that he was, he put all of his stuff in storage and moved all her stuff into the new place. He was spending hundreds of pounds a month on storing a sofa, cabinets, etc.
Those £1 a month adverts are lies, aren't they?
Oh, tell me about it, right? And so what he did is that he donated it to the British Heart Foundation.
Amazing.
And he got an email about 6 months later, and he said, "I'll just let you know, we made, I think it was £300 on your stuff." So the stuff that he was paying to store and never using, he donated. A charity made £300 off the stuff that he was never using, which went towards research into tackling heart disease.
Wow.
And so that is the impact that you could potentially have. Your stuff that is sitting around your house not being used, it could have a huge impact on you, your community, and the environment. So now might be the best time to have a look around your home and going, who else could get value from those HDMI cables?
Yeah, exactly. And some of them might even be faulty. Like, I just need to test it, and I might even need to just throw them away. Yeah. Like you rightly mentioned, I do want to speak about the link between climate change and minimalism that we spoke about a bit off air. Before we do, you mentioned in your book that minimalism is not just physical stuff. Yep. It can be digital, and it can kind of be in all facets of life. I want to speak a bit about the mind. How does one get more of a minimalistic mind, specifically with thoughts?
Yeah.
Because often I find that thoughts can stack up in my head so much that I almost feel paralyzed by the thoughts, and then I can't look forward at my next step because I'm like stressing about this bundle of thoughts, and you just want to go, let me just have one thought at a time.
Yeah.
How do you begin the decluttering process of your mind?
Yeah, great question, Faisal. So I did a bit of research, and I love the psychology around minimalism, decluttering, linked to human behavior and things like that. And there is a bit of research that was done in Canada a few years ago that mental clutter leads to age-related memory loss.
Wow.
So, thanks. That's an interesting reaction.
It is very interesting.
It's mad, isn't it? And I never realised that. And so what my mental clutter was, similar to yours, was that I just had a stack of stuff going on, almost like a mental to-do list that I had to work my way through before I could do anything else. So everything else would suffer. So diet, relationships, because you're continually going through this mental to-do list. And a lot of people at the moment have so much on their mind. And what I try and do is challenge people around what is your truth versus what is the truth. So mental clutter generally tends to be stories that we tell ourselves that stop us from doing various bits and pieces. So the stories that I told myself before even contemplating writing a book was that I'm not educated enough. I'm not skilled enough. I don't have the ability to write 240 odd pages of stuff, right? I failed English when I was at school. I didn't go to university. So all these things I would tell myself that it kept me at a certain level. It kept me safe, right? And so I would tell these stories. And the more I would tell myself these stories, the more they cemented and they became my truth. But they weren't the truth. You know, I could write a story if I wanted to.
Sure.
And so can you. And so can we all. And we've all got a story to tell. But there's this mental clutter that blocks us from doing that. And sometimes, you know, the stories that we tell ourselves are just made up. Just made up. Based on stuff that we might have heard once that we've snowballed into this huge thing. And so decluttering those thoughts can add massive value to your life. And again, what I would kind of recommend is that, you know, take the time to reflect and write down maybe what are some of these things that I've created. Who's told me that I'm this or that or whatever? Probably no one, or probably someone 10 years ago.
Sure.
And so that mental clutter can really kind of impact us, and so I hope that's kind of helpful. That's the way I kind of dealt with it. Is that everything I was telling myself was a complete and utter fabrication.
No, it's true. It's very true. I found that with like the micro things that were cluttering my mind, a to-do list really helped because you offload them onto well, for me, it's the digital to-do list app, but perhaps you could write them down or something. And then what I was left with is, like you just said, the macro, the big things that were a load of faff, really, that don't actually exist.
Yeah. I want to use faff more in a sentence.
Yeah, you can. I think we should count how many times the word stuff has been used in this podcast.
Yeah.
You must have to use that word a lot as well, because it's like
I do.
Yeah,
I have to.
Imagine.
I have to say
part
stuff.
Of the job, you have to.
Yeah.
Before we were when we were out there, we were speaking about discomfort, and I was asking you how a person can try and invite discomfort into their life. I suppose you could say. We know that greatness often is on the other end of discomfort. But I was saying to you, we were speaking about traveling, weren't we? You were saying that you are currently kind of moving from one place to another and stuff like that, and you seem to be enjoying quite a free flowing life. And I said that I'm one of those people that I'm very homely. I like being in my comfortable surroundings, very cushioned, and I can't be convinced, and that's why I don't like traveling that much. I don't like going places, because I'm like, well, I'm fine where I am. I've built my environment for myself in a way that will make me comfortable. Why would I then, after all of that effort and hard work of trying to build a cushioned environment, go, oh, let me try something uncomfortable? It's
strange, isn't it? It's strange, because we do spend a lot of time, money, energy building our safe place,
comfort zone.
Yeah, it is. And I did exactly that, mate. Exactly the same. You know, spending hours and hours and years of my life in the same organisation, in the same industry, because I was good at it and I was comfortable. Similar, living in the same area, because I knew the places to go. I knew how to get to X, Y, and Z. And but fine might be fine for lots of people. Just for me, it wasn't enough. There was aspirations that I had underneath that I couldn't get by being fine. And so, like I said about going travelling, I knew I had to really kind of stretch myself to go to places like Myanmar and drive on the other side of the road in America for like 3 or 4 months, because I've only driven around the M25. So anything north of that is north, right?
Yeah, it's true.
And so, for me to do those things and experiment a little bit, I had to reach out of that comfort zone. I had to kind of evolve the solid 6 out of 10 life that I was living, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all if that is what you want. just for me at that moment in time, I wanted to see what 7, 8, and 9 looked like
Fine.
and felt like. And what I found is that when I stepped out of the comfort zone, that's where the magic happened.
Yeah.
And some people like to say that, you know, the comfort zone is comfortable, but nothing grows there. And I found that, you know, I could have had all the education in the world, or, you know, done different types of jobs, but traveling for me was the biggest growth I've ever had. And I will do it again and again and again, and going to different cultures and going to different places and putting myself into weird situations that we probably can't talk about on this on this podcast.
Yeah,
really makes you grow as a person. And I've now used all of that experience to come back into normal life, and I now see things differently. Not like the Matrix or anything like that, but I see things differently than maybe someone who would have stayed in the same place doing the same thing for 40 years. But yeah, that's just the way I've pivoted my life.
It seems like a good pivot, because, you know, you say you see things differently, but it's probably seeing things for how they actually are, as opposed to a lot of us perhaps wear like rose tinted glasses when we see things. Before we talk about the book, I want to finish up talking about the book. Before we do that, let's speak about this link between minimalism and a really hot topic right now, which is climate change.
Yeah.
You're saying that you're wearing a climate.
It's the waves,
yeah,
man. So this is the ocean on my jumper. Yeah, the ocean. So yeah, it's a link that has only kind of come about maybe over the last year or so. People have been talking about how decluttering your stuff can actually have a positive impact on climate change and things like that. So I used to be Mr. Fast Fashion, which I'm really embarrassed to say. I used to buy tons of t-shirts that maybe might get 2 or 3 wears out of them and then I'll throw them away. And the fashion industry is, I think, the second most damaging industry on earth.
What's first?
Oil.
Oh, okay.
So because of the volume of waste that goes into landfill, I think it's probably about a dump truck a second of wasted. That's about 4 dump trucks done now.
Yeah, exactly. There was a really weird vibration. I was thinking, sorry.
No, sorry. And so we basically trying to utilize the clothes that we've already got, you know, and give them to people, so that you'd see that over the last few years there's been loads and loads of brands that have all of a sudden emerged. Vinted, Spock, there's other brands where you can, Pre-Loved. So all these places are now popping up where you can donate your clothes. And so I almost go down the kind of rabbit hole of, when I do buy clothes, where am I buying them from? You know, what are the supply chain like? Do they pay their employees a living wage? Where do they work? You know, because we had that recent issue in Leicester, which was connected to, I can't remember the name of the brand now, but I'm not going to out them, but they were getting paid something like £3 an hour or something like that, and then the whole factory burnt down. And, you know, so all the working conditions, living conditions that are linked to the demand and the supply of clothes is huge. So where you buy your clothes from might have an impact on your carbon footprint. So I now buy my clothes from brands that either plant a tree for every single thing I buy, or they will offer me to return the item. So after I'm done with this jumper, maybe in a couple of years or so, I will send it back to them. They will recycle it and make a new product out of my old product, and they'll give me a discount for it as well.
Doesn't it seem like a lot of effort?
Yeah.
But then the reward is
Yeah.
better, I guess, is what you're saying.
Yeah, so you're right. There is a lot of, because there's lots of information on the internet, so you can just look up who are sustainable and ethical clothing brands.
Fine.
You get a top 10 and you get the worst. Trust me, you'll see some familiar names in the worst.
I just saw. I don't know if you've seen this, Faz, but there's a basketball player, Kantar, Turkish basketball player, plays in the NBA. Huge. And he's just part of playing.
He said, no.
He's one of the more famous basketball players. If you saw a picture of him, I'm sure you'd recognize him. I hope. He put up a post yesterday or something, and he's doing this massive thing against Nike, where basically he's like talking about what you were saying about like the like slave labor and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Let me find it. It's on his Instagram page.
Yeah,
But it's true. There's like this awakening going on around the world.
Yeah. Yeah,
And-
I mean, yeah, Nike are pretty known for unethical.
There you go. Look,
practices.
Enes Kanter, he put up this thing, and he wore these on when he was playing on
court?
on court.
Wow.
And so it's a shoe. It's a Nike shoe, and then it's got hypocrite and Nike on it, and it's got blood stains on it.
Wow.
And then there you go. Look, he's worn them.
Wow,
I'm
that's
assuming
a
that's him
message.
wearing them.
Yeah.
And he's got slave labor, no more excuses. And the caption he wrote is, to the owner of Nike, Phil Knight. Oh, to the owner of Nike, Phil Knight. How about I book plane tickets for us and let's fly to China together. We can try and visit these slave labor camps and you can see it with your own eyes. And then he tagged LeBron James and Michael Jordan. And then he said, you guys are welcome to come too. End the Uyghur forced labor. He's really put out a statement, you know, and that's huge for someone on such a mainstream level.
But this is the value of information being publicly available.
Yeah.
Is that now you can make a choice. Now you have, because I've got more time on my hands now because I don't spend my time cleaning my stuff because I don't have a lot of it, and I only do things that add value. So I find myself that I like having time by myself to reflect, to be creative and things like that. And when I do buy something, I'll go, right, I'm going to spend an extra 5 minutes just reading of where they source their material from. And if it doesn't align with who I am, I won't buy from there. And I might spend an extra tenner on a jumper, but, you know, I'm supporting and trying to get into the, you know, the circular fashion economy and things like that. But yeah, a kind of minimalist lifestyle allows me more time. It allows me more time to make intentional decisions. And when I do buy stuff, it's with intention. And even things like food, right? So you can't live your life like looking up every single bit of food and things like that. Some people do. I don't really want to do that. But I will look to squeeze as much time and money out of the things that I'm buying. So for example, I might use a cashback site. And I'll make sure that I might just get a little bit extra money for ordering something online and things like that. But yeah, every bit of clothing at the moment is an intentional choice for me. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It reminds me now, to be honest, like everything's aligning. I don't know if you know this this financial speaker in the US called Dave Ramsey.
Yeah, I know Dave.
Yeah, so
I know Dave. I know Dave.
Yeah,
No.
Dave, we'll just go for him.
I don't even know if I'm allowed to call him Dave.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
I know of Mr. Ramsey.
Mr. Ramsey, yeah. Dave, we can call him Dave.
We call him
it's fine,
Dave, yeah.
I listen to his podcast and I love it. That's just felt like I was calling you. I listen to his podcast, love it. And
people do call me that.
do they?
Yeah. No one uses my first name.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Chris, you know, is quite common, but love it. And it's got a bit of a...
Now we're friends.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now you've crossed the line now,
Yeah,
mate.
exactly.
And now we are friends for
Great.
life.
Perfect. So to Dave, I've never aligned what he, as much as I've loved his rules on finance and personal finance, I've never aligned it with minimalism, but it makes so much sense now that you're speaking to me about how, I suppose, the concept of minimalism, the way he promotes personal finance is so aligned with minimalism, because he has these like core values, which are, one of them is that there should not be a dollar or a pound in your bank account that doesn't have a label on it. You know the purpose of everything. And if it doesn't like have a purpose per se, then it's spare money that goes into a pot or like that has a label on it, but nothing doesn't have a label essentially. And then he talks about when like one of the first things that you've got to do is save an emergency fund, but then after that it's paying off all of your debts in this debt snowball. And even when he talks about paying off all of your debts, the concept behind it is decluttering.
Yeah.
And he says that what we've become as a society is this society of buying everything on finance. If we can't afford, we don't think about things that in a manner of we can't afford it anymore.
Yeah.
We think I can't afford it, but my credit card can.
Yeah.
And then he said it's become even more dangerous now, because now everything's available on interest-free finance. So
Yeah.
I can't afford it, but I can over 12 months, and I don't pay any more for it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And he said this is such a dangerous way of living now, and obviously the kind of consumerism is capitalizing off of it.
Yeah.
And he said, when our grandparents wanted a sofa, and the sofa cost $1,000, they would go, do we have $1,000? And they don't. And they go,
Yeah.
okay, we can't buy the sofa.
Yeah,
And he
yeah.
said, we don't do that
It's very
anymore.
black and white, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's true because we have all of these options, all these like Klarna and so on.
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's incredibly dangerous, and it shows how it's all linked, doesn't it?
Oh, I lived off my credit cards for years.
Oh, really?
And so every month I would pay down a little bit of my credit card and then use it again for something else that I probably didn't really need. And it was just this continual cycle. So there's a bit in the book, and again, this was a complete coincidence, that, like the credit reference agencies like Experian and things like that, right? They gamify you to borrow more, basically.
Yes.
Right. So
he's so against that, by the way.
Yeah, right. So the high you get points, you score higher the more you borrow, and the better debtor you are.
Yeah.
Right. And so what I did
It's insane, isn't
it's
it?
mad. It's mad. So when you kind of look at it, you go, so I scored the highest possible score you could get on Experian, which is 999, which is also the same number you would call in an emergency.
Yeah.
So it was just bizarre. Like, I was looking at these things and, well, that's a bit.
Oh, I need to
That's a
call
bit
999.
what do I win? Like, what do I win?
So is that because you
More
were,
loans, there
Is
you
that
go.
because you were taking more loans, but you were good at paying them off on time? That's
Exactly,
is
yeah.
that the measurement?
Yeah. So
Right.
So my mortgage, my credit cards, I'd always pay. Every month I'd always pay a little bit off, and so I was almost like being a good citizen. So as long as it rewards you by getting the high score,
Yeah.
and you then get sent letters by saying, oh, you can borrow a little bit more and things like that. So you're almost tempted to keep going and keep playing
Wow.
the game. So yeah, but there's this whole thing about the financial stability of the global thing, which I don't really know that much about, to be honest. Because if everybody was to go debt free now, that everything would collapse. So I don't know
Yeah.
that much about it. So debt has its place.
But yeah. There's this video I saw on Instagram the other day, and it said that Jeff Bezos he said something like he's worth like 200 billion. Right? I might be off by like a few billion, but something like 200
Couple
billion
of zeros,
or
right?
170 billion or something.
Yeah.
And he said that there's how many people in the world? 7 billion.
Something like that.
Yeah, so he said that if Jeff Bezos gave every single person in the world $1 billion, he'd still have like $180 billion
Yeah.
to himself.
It's bizarre.
Which is actually so hilarious because you think that's actually true.
Yeah.
And it's such a small number of people. And it's like, is there anyone that can help facilitate this? Because everybody would be a billionaire. And he'd be 160 billionaire. Like,
It's bizarre, right?
There's something so weird about it. What I was going to say more so about this idea of minimalism, financial minimalism, and debt and all this kind of stuff is that so much of as you know, so much of our core audience, probably 99%, are like are Muslims in the UK and the US. I think like UK, US, Canada is like the top three. And I was really excited to do this podcast because minimalism it aligns so much with kind of the Islamic kind of way of living, which is, I was saying before about this concept of israf, which is like not buying things or not spending silly amounts of money on things that we shouldn't. But I feel like it has this perfect balance where it says it has this you have this minimalist lifestyle. You might often hear the word dunya mentioned, and dunya is basically, they use it in rap songs and stuff now, but it's an Arabic word for worldly. And basically what it means is that if you get so invested in the worldly life and just buying loads of things, you're never going to get contentment for it. And so the idea is to chase contentment and not chasing things, because things will never make you happy. And then there's all these Arabic proverbs, like I said, the one about the rivers, but also one about saying that if a person was to chase worldly things, you will never be satisfied. But if you chase contentment or like contentment in God, then you get by getting contentment, you get the worldly things anyway. Because like in this, like, because you're content now, right? And even that whole concept comes so full circle, because even like the idea of Islam is like very minimal in that the key part of it at the very core is that there's no intermediary between you and God, right? So like there's one God, there's no intermediary. You can speak to him, and if you have like directly, you don't have to, like, for example, go through any other means and that kind of stuff. And so the whole concept, I suppose I'm getting at, is that it aligns so well with this idea of minimalism.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think I was excited by this podcast, because I think that our audience would say, well, I do want to live a more minimal life because it aligns with my way of life that I should be living.
Yeah.
But what are some practical steps on how to do that? I think that you've done an amazing job at breaking that down for us. Some of the practical steps in which we can start living a more minimal life, because it, like I said, it aligns so perfectly.
Yeah.
So the book.
Yeah, do you want another practical step before we go on
Please.
to... Right, everyone get our phones out.
Fine. I'm not looking forward to this then.
All right, phone out, everyone. So this is something that I did when I started going out and speaking. People couldn't necessarily be in their homes. So when I was talking about decluttering, people couldn't envisage what their home looked like. And so what I would do is I'd prompt everyone to get their phone out. And so what I would do is say, right, here we go. We can't declutter at home because we're not there. But what apps have you got on your phone that haven't been used for ages?
Yeah, there's definitely loads of it.
And the task was just delete one of them and then share which one it was.
But what if one day
Yes,
use that app?
yes.
He's
There we
using all of
go.
them, he's using all of it in one sentence.
Exactly right.
All right, so I'm going to delete an app.
Yeah. So pick an app that you're letting go. So it's basically we're practicing the practice of letting go, basically. And so what I did is I had something like a car parking app that I'd probably use when I drove to Brighton once or something. Hadn't used it for years, so I deleted it. But what we tend to do is we do exactly what you said there. Oh, one day I might keep it, and it's not that much hassle to leave it on there, right? But it's just the practice of letting go. So what do you feel when you hold down and it disappears? Is there a sense of loss? Is there a sense of, but I invested time and maybe I paid $1.99 for the app? Or, whatever it is, what kind of went through your mind when you were deleting it?
Inconvenience. Like, if I need to download it again, I'm gonna have to go through the whole process. But I might need it in the moment. I'm gonna have to download it, wait for it to load, and then sign up again, log in again. But if it's just there, I have the space for it. Why can't I keep it? It's the future inconvenience that it might cause.
Still got work to do on this one.
Well, and that's the thing. Though, so it's a really good challenge, right? Because that is what stops us from actually, taking action, because you've just made that up.
Yeah, go on, delete an app. Have you deleted one?
It's a negative scenario that you've just created in your head. Because I used to do it all the time.
No, that's very true. While you're finding one to delete, I'm going to tell you which one I deleted. Funnily enough, it already became addictive and deleted 2. So I actually deleted 4, but
you're taking it. Yeah, it's good.
So one of them I deleted is, there's an app called Zap, which is like ordering groceries online or something.
Oh yeah.
But they're not available in my area, so basically they contact. I literally have. I can't remember.
Just in case, though, right?
What happened is they contacted us to do a sponsorship, but then we didn't end up getting done in time, and I left the app there.
Yeah.
But I've never used it, so I've deleted that. The second one I've deleted, which is actually 3 different apps, was an app called Random, and another one was called like Pretty Random, and the other one was called like Choose For Me or something. Because when we did our house show last month, there was an element of the house show where I had to randomly pick a number.
Oh yeah.
As I quickly looked for any apps that allowed me to randomly pick a number. And I downloaded 3 because I was like, I've got good internet, let me just download 3 and then one of them will work.
Yeah.
And since then I've had them on there. I've never used them since.
Yeah,
so I just deleted all of those. But yeah, you're right.
But it's interesting because the things that were useful, right, or added value then might not necessarily add value in the future or now.
But I think once you start decluttering, like once you get rid of one thing, now you're in the mindset of like, okay, I'm letting go.
Yeah.
You want to look at like for example, a spring clean.
Yeah.
You can just normally clean, but once you spring clean, you realize that half of your wardrobe or half of whatever is gone.
Yeah.
Because once you start, like you said, it's really addictive feeling, and you just want to get rid of more and more and more, so that your space is clean. So
there you go. So for the guys that are listening, if you guys want to have a quick look at your phone and see what adds value now, and remove the rest. And that's they're the kind of, that's the ethos I live by. If it doesn't really add value, I will remove it.
These tasks probably really add to your talk as well, because there's that element of interacting with the audience, and people really love that.
And it's funny because I've had some people go, I had a karate app, and I never went to karate, but it was there for like 5 years, and loads of different, like how to do the crane kick, or whatever it was, and they never did it, and So yeah, so they're the very, very easy steps, because you know you're right. At any point, at any time, you can just re-download the app if you really needed it. So that's the kind of digital version of that 2020 rule you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
But I think
Low risk. This is a very, very low risk
It is.
one.
But like when it comes to like pictures and stuff, people won't be as keen to delete
that's
things
true.
because
Yeah,
you can't
yeah.
relive, you can't go back and take the same picture again.
Yeah.
So that's why people, like, the majority of their storage is taken up by photos. If
Yeah.
like normally on holidays and stuff, like, you just take photos and keep them, because realistically you might have 3 of the same photos in the same place, but because it's different angles and stuff, you're like, I will never be able to go back to retake them, so I won't delete them.
Yeah.
How do you
Photos.
battle that?
Yeah, there must be a lot of
photos.
people come to you with that sentimental thing.
Yeah, the sentimental thing is really interesting. Photos are huge. I've literally only a couple of weeks ago, I still had all the old developed photos in a box.
Oh,
Probably
really?
Hundreds and hundreds of them, right? So, but they were clutter. So every time I moved house, they would just come with me into a box and they would just put somewhere, and then they would put it in a box somewhere. And I never really looked at them, but we've now got the ability to digitize them. So I've sent them off, and they're being scanned, and I'll get a USB. And so I have all my hundreds of pictures that were taken in the late 90s, going out, and in the early 2000s. I'm older than I look.
I remember the guy on the podcast that he did last one where they said your hair's very good for your age. So.
Yeah, thank you, mate. Thank you. Early 40s, man.
Oh, that's
Moisturize,
amazing.
that's all.
Wow.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, you'd never think it. You'd never think it.
Thanks, man. So I had all those posts, and again, taking pictures on my phone. I had probably thousands of them. But again, if they all add value to you, keep them. So it's pretty straightforward. I've got a lot of photos, and they add value to me because they still tell my story. If I had got rid of all of my photos, I would never have been able to write a book, because I used all of my photos to propel myself back into the positions that I was in to be able to write like the sensory things like walking up a street or seeing horrific things in San Francisco and all these types of different things. But then you can always also go, oh, what about all these messages that I've had from 2013 and WhatsApp groups? And so your digital life and your way you kind of your relationship with your phone and email and all that stuff, there's definitely tweaks that you could do. But yeah, I ultimately, anything that adds value to my life, like my pictures, I'm keeping them.
What do you use? What software do you use to access your emails?
So I've got Gmail.
So you just use Gmail?
Gmail, yeah.
Do you know what? You should try this app called Superhuman.
Oh,
It's
interesting.
amazing. So I use Superhuman for my emails, and it's helped me. I'm always at inbox 0 now.
Nice.
Because what the guys at Superhuman created. First of all, it's a really young startup, and so when you, I don't know if they do this now, but they probably did do, because I signed up. Let's say it was definitely this year, and at that point it was invite only. So only somebody who already on Superhuman can get someone else on there and recommend somebody else, and then they'll accept it.
Very exclusive.
And
membership,
at that point it might still be. If it is, I'll send you an invite.
Man,
It's weird because like you feel all exclusive, it's great marketing, but then you have to pay for the service anyway. So it's like weird. But what was really cool about it is it was a small team, and you schedule time with them when you first sign up to it. And an actual human from San Francisco, from their like startup offices, does like a half an hour call with you and teaches you how to use it.
Nice.
But what their whole USP is that you can do everything from the tips of your fingers, and so you can like manage your emails, and there's shortcuts for everything, so it's very shortcut based. So like E puts in emails, marks it as done, and C composes a new one, all these kind of things. And once you're used to it, you literally you have to, at first it's quite tough, and you do find yourself using your mouse a lot, but now I'm just like going through my emails, like pressing buttons before you know you're inbox 0.
Nice.
It's really helped me back. Have a look at Superhuman.
I definitely will.
There might be like a trial version as well to try out first.
Yeah, because email's huge, especially from a personal perspective, because we sign up for loads of stuff.
Yeah.
And then for years we're just bombarded with discounts and
you just
deals,
ignore it,
right?
but you think, why can't I just unsubscribe?
And that's the thing, inconvenience, right? What we were saying earlier, because the easy thing to do is swipe it and it disappears. And it's like, if you would picture that in your home, if you just basically moving one thing from your bedroom and putting it into a loft, that's the equivalent of swiping and deleting. You're just putting it into somewhere else.
That's true.
But things like unsubscribing, it takes an extra couple of taps and that's it. You're done. I've even recently I unsubscribed from like postal junk mail, which you can do. So I used to get, because obviously I've moved quite a lot. The people that live in the places that I've left are probably still getting a load of junk mail. But in the place that I live now, I've just signed up and I'm like, I don't want any junk mail sent to me.
Really?
And so
How do you do that?
I'll send you the website afterwards. I can't remember the website.
Oh, so there's like one.
You cite basically. You go onto a website and it says, "Do you want to be unsubscribed for like the UK postal?" It's not.
Junk.
It's not called. Yeah. It's like there's another word for it.
Like a professional word for
Yeah,
junk,
something like that. But yeah, I always used to get like. I mean, we all do. We all just get leaflets full of discounts for like sofas and loans and all these types of things. So your name, your email, your address is on all of these lists, and you can take yourself off that. And it's just another little thing to save you from having to collect loads of paperwork and waste and stuff like that.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Right, let's finish off the podcast by speaking about the book.
Yeah, man.
Because it's really cool. I've had a scan through it, and the it's really nicely set out, because at the beginning you kind of give a bit of your story, and then there's 3 kind of phases, right? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
What are those 3 phases in the book, and why have you split it up into those 3 phases? By the way, the book is called Discovery of Less.
It is.
How I found everything I wanted underneath everything I owned, which is a lovely tagline.
Yeah, that was a placeholder, and we never thought of anything better, and so we left it.
But it turned out really well.
Yeah.
How I found everything I wanted underneath everything I owned.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me about the book. By the way, how do you? What did Jamil have to play with it? Because I saw Jamil's quote or something.
Yeah. So these are so we'll go back to the mental clutter.
Fine.
Of that people are too big or too far or too successful or too intelligent to speak to, and so I thought I'm just going to ask people to have a chat or to reach out, and so Jamil Qureshi, if you've not heard of him, he's an incredible human being.
Incredible.
And someone who I would aspire to be like, or to work with in the future. Jamil, if you're listening, hook me up.
Mm-hmm. I was actually just speaking to him the other day, actually, when you were back and forth in emails.
Awesome.
Maybe he's listening to this.
Maybe he is. So he came into the organisation I was working in and did a talk.
Okay.
And I was blown away, and I was like, I was almost listening to everything he said, every word. So I started to follow him, and I started to absorb his teachings and the things that he would challenge and be quite disruptive, and it really aligned with the person that I wanted to be like. And so I've become more disruptive and more creative and things like that. So what I thought I'd do is the people that I admired and who inspired me, I thought I'd reach out to some of them and say, look, I'm writing a book about stuff, right? About letting go. I really admire you. You've helped me on my journey. Would you be interested in just dropping a couple of sentences? And funnily enough, half of them said yes.
Wow.
Some of them said no, and some of them didn't reply. But that's the whole, you kind of expect that because people are busy and things like that. But
or they're just losers.
Or they don't really, I don't really want to be involved. That's fair enough. But so Jamil was one of these people, and I said, mate, I love your stuff, and if you're interested, I'd really like to get your view on it. And he said, yeah, no problem.
Oh, nice.
But my assumption would have been, he's too big, he's too far away, he's too successful, he's too intelligent. He's not going to want to be talking to people like me, right? A working class bloke who didn't finish education, who can't. All of this stuff, right? Again, all the clutter that I'd built up and complete lies that I told myself.
Yeah.
So I reached out to a bunch of people that inspired me. Jamil was one of them, and Jamil come back and wrote a little ditty in the book. So yeah.
Oh, that's nice. So the book, 3 phases. Why 3 phases? Yeah.
Yeah. So it was almost like breaking them down for people to understand. So the first kind of phase is very much like, what was life really like with all the stuff? And so, I basically really describe about, waking up every morning in a complete hump and having what I call like a mini tantrum, and, really being annoyed and don't really want to go to work. You don't want to do this. You're just bored. And then things like getting dressed in the morning, which is something so simple, but it would take me ages because I had so many clothes, if I had so much choice, and I was worried about what I looked like. And so it's almost like that phase 1 is about what was life like with all the clutter. And then the second phase is like, what was life like once I started to get rid of it? And all these things started to happen, like a little bit of law of attraction. So things started to happen, the positive things. And travel is included within all of that. So there's a whole bit about traveling and letting go of everything. So there's a bit in there about where I had no keys. So we used to carry, we've got car key, we've got house key.
Oh,
so
mate, you should see me.
Yeah, right. So we have Let's have a look.
These are all-
Yes, that's right. That's exactly
That's
what I
my
had.
bunch.
Right. So
And they're all useful to me, or so I say.
yeah, well, that's exactly what I had. And so as each month went by, the keys started to get removed. And my last key was to sell the flat that I had in South London. I just had this key ring. There was nothing on it, with no keys. And there's that moment I thought, oh, bloody hell. Like, I've really kind of exited out of society now. So what does it mean? Does it mean that I'm not good enough anymore? And so it was almost like, right, well, I can start again. So I can redesign what my life looks like now. So yeah, went traveling. So if you like traveling and road trips, there's a load of stuff in there about traveling. And then the kind of end part is about all the stuff that I was able to achieve once I got rid of everything, and almost like redesigning my life. And there's a little quote in there about, if you don't design your life, someone else will do it for you.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I almost had to reset everything and start again. So yeah, being in my mid to late 30s and starting again. And it's that kind of journey of unraveling everything from the past, stopping and starting again. So yeah.
Oh, amazing. Well, it's been put together beautifully, and
thank you, mate.
I was very happy to receive a very clean process of ordering. It's available on Amazon. We'll put the link for it in the bio,
Oh,
in
thank
the
you, sir,
description
yeah.
of this video. And Chris, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, mate, it's my pleasure.
Honestly, been a lovely conversation, and,
Yeah.
and really understanding kind of your mindset, and the journey has been amazing. And look, I always say to all of our guests that once you've been here once, the door's always open. So
Oh, mate,
it'd be lovely
thank
to have you back, perhaps for your second book, or
The pressure's on now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. or perhaps even just to get an update on kind of how things are going and stuff like that.
Yeah, thank you, man.
But I really, really do appreciate your time, and thank you for myself and the audience listening. So.
No. I'm grateful for having me on and talking about this stuff. It's probably been the best podcast I've been on.
Oh,
It's,
thank you very much.
The
That means a lot.
quality of conversation. And almost like, I like to say that, like, long time listener, first time caller, because I listen to your stuff because you add value to my life.
Thank
And
you
so
so
it's almost
much.
great to meet you in person and create with you. So yeah, I'm very, very grateful.
Oh,
Thank
that
you,
means
mate.
a lot. Thank you so much, man. And you've gained yourself a fan as an author as well. So I hope to one day be joining you on that category of authors. But I'm still very far away. I've like given myself a rule that I shouldn't start writing until I'm at least past my 30s, because I've given myself. I know that it sounds like I'm like stopping myself from doing something.
It
when I
does
can do
sound like
that.
you're stopping yourself.
But
yeah.
I've justified it to myself, because I'm saying that even just in the past few years, I'm 28 in February, so I'm 27 now. Just even in the past few years, I've been humbled a lot in that, you know, you think you know it all, and then you learn something new, like, oh, I really didn't know that.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking to myself, there's going to come a point, I feel like I'm still in that process of saying things, doing things, being preachy about things, and then being humbled and going, oh, that wasn't actually the right way of doing things. And so I want to go through a few more years of that, and then be a bit more content that I've experienced what I've experienced. I also think that with experience comes a bit more respect. Like, people might, there's an element of, okay, this 20-something-year-old guy has written, how much can I really learn from him? To going to, okay, so he's had maybe like 10, 20 years in the field and made mistakes and picked up along the way. So that's why I'm starting to think that just give it a couple more years.
I wonder whether these are just stories that you've made up yourself.
Maybe.
Because I think you've got a story to tell, you know, and whether
Perhaps.
that is a period of your life that is not necessarily your whole life. It might be, you know, I would love to know the story of how this started.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So almost like you've got stories to tell.
Sure.
You've got, you know, stories about the guests that you've had on.
I think that's where I think I'm looking to write the book. I like the idea of
An
writing.
expose of all your guests.
Yeah. I'll be telling you this is not a gotcha podcast, but really I'm just like saving all of the clips I've edited out. No, I think like I benefit so much from my guests. And this kind of thing that we just did, which is be able to conversate without technology and without being distracted or speaking to others. We've just had like, you know, an hour and a half or something worth of conversation just face to face. And that's a lost art
It's
now.
good, isn't it?
Yeah, it does
feels
feel
good.
nice. So I feel like in that, and I've done that now over 250 times, I've benefited so much from people in different expertise, yourself being one, people like Jamil, and I want to put all that into writing and just say like where I benefit from everybody and tell other people's stories. But from my perspective, like, you know, one day I had Chris on, and Chris talked about his journey, and here's what he found out through his journey, and just like a real big like story of everybody's
Mate,
lives.
well, I'm looking forward to whatever it is that you
Thank you.
create. But yeah, get it done, man, because like we want to hear your stories, we want to hear your experiences, and you know, you can do it in your way. It doesn't have to be like 250 odd pages.
Yeah.
It could be 100 or a little mini series of things like that.
Right.
Well, I'll be first in the queue, mate.
Thank
so
you,
let
man.
me
I
know when
appreciate
it's there.
that. Thank you very much, Chris. And thank you very much, everyone, for listening. This was episode 254, I believe, of Fresh Lugano. Thank you, Fawaz, for being on production today with the slider. And we'll see you guys next week. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Cheers, mate.